Going once, going twice, sold! You're listening to The Property Pod, an accessible and easy way to get into or help understand the goings-on of the property market. Join Aaron, John and Pat as they discuss all things real estate, most likely get sidetracked, and then try and rein it all back in as they present The Property Pod.
Ahoy there, listeners. Everybody out there, welcome back to the Property Pod, your easy-to-access property podcast. That's what we do. We've done it 20 times now, and it's still hard to come up with an introduction each week, but I do try.
That's why we leave it to you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, boys.
You're welcome.
You'll hear the voices on the deck. I've got Patrick Berry over there from 414 Real Estate. How are you, Paddy B?
I'm very good to be back.
It's good that you're back. You're healthy. You're kicking goals.
That's it.
It's actually funny. Last week's episode, we talked about how we wanted to go and sun ourselves by the pool and maybe record in the sun.
Oh, yep.
And this week has been week from hell weather-wise. Like, it hasn't let up. Like, it actually, the Mount Wellington looks like a Boston bun at the moment. It's got a very, very white, frosty, it's very low with the snow.
What?
Low with the snow.
That sounded pretty good. That sounded like a real radio presenter, didn't it?
Get low.
Yeah, that was DJ Low
With his mountain snow. Yeah.
his mountain snow hit.
Let's bring Mum in before we make it worse.
I was actually going to be like, man, she's over there sitting in the seat thinking, why the hell did I come back?
Well, the key word there is come back. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our first return visitor. She enjoyed it so much last week and we didn't scare her off. We've got Julie McGregor.
Good morning, guys.
Thanks so much for coming back,
Thanks,
Julie.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
How did you find the experience last week?
Well, I thought it was very entertaining.
Oh, good.
I actually thought when John said he'd get you in this week that we were just swapping out. I didn't realise John was coming back as well. I thought
We
we're
did
just
make that
upgrading.
joke.
Yeah, that's true.
We made the joke at the end of last episode that we'd have a rotating McGregor chair. So
Right, well, there's a few of us now. I could bring in my cousins and then my famous brother and then the other one that's smarter and more good-looking than both of us. We could just keep rolling this around.
well, there you go. We could each 20 episodes.
Are you saying that Aaron and I are stuck with the bottom of the barrel?
Yeah. 100%.
That's all right, mate. Julie's here. She'll save the day. So did you get any feedback from being on the podcast where you walk down the street and be like, oh, my God, it's that lady from the podcast?
Well, no, not exactly. But,
Well, that's depressing.
Wait for it. It's coming.
I'm looking forward to it. On the podcast with the three famous realtors.
Indeed. Well, no, look, it was really good. My mum also listens, so this is just a podcast for mums at the moment, but she was like, oh, so lovely hearing Julie on there and John being so nice to his mother on there. I said, oh, I wouldn't be that nice.
What I like about your mum is I know that she's dedicated every week to listening.
She is. Do you want to know where she listens?
Where?
No, I better not say.
My mum, I know for a fact, has listened to one episode if I'm lucky.
Being
She probably
busy.
cut it out of the first 2 minutes as well.
probably should
That'll
do
do.
that.
That's
She's I've heard these boys talk too much. Also, today we're going to jump into a bit more rental stuff. We've got Julie on the line, or not on the line. She's actually here with us again, which is great. But we're going to jump into stuff to do with like rents and bonds. But there's a quick little thing. Pat was talking with what's our friend from Domain?
Jason.
Jason, that's him. He was
Episode 2 or 3, was he? 2,
Yeah,
I
it was
think.
way
I think it's
back.
episode
I think it was episode 2.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you were chatting with him this week, and he had some interesting news, a bit of a press release that we thought we could pass along the line.
Yeah, so apparently we have competition out there now.
Competition.
Yeah, so apparently we're no longer the only easy-to-access real estate show.
We got in first. There are other ones before us, but we were the first ease of access.
So Domain are now partnershiped with Channel 9. Obviously, you would have seen on the block. They've got Domain logos everywhere.
Yeah, Domain's all over the block.
Yeah, so the Channel 9 and Domain are owned by the same people, and they've actually, on the 7th of September, going to be launching a show called Your Domain,
A
real estate show.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
got it.
a TV show or a radio show? Or
Oh,
a
yeah, that's a
podcast
fair point. TV show.
or- Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Just got to keep getting those slow bits of information from you, mate.
On a Saturday morning. I
You know, my research for these shows are 5 minutes before we turn the mics on, John. Look, I'll get through the article. Wait.
So tell us more about the show. It's going to be a weekly show.
Yeah, so a
on
weekly
TV.
show on Channel 9 on Saturday mornings. It's going to talk about, obviously, auctions, upcoming things that's happening in the marketplace, things like how to get your house ready for sale, those type of things as well. So
Yeah, cool.
it's going to be a mix of a bit of a variety show as well as a sort of data show as well.
Yep.
So I think it could be an interesting look. They have indicated as well that they are going to go out to regional areas as well. So maybe they'll come to Hobart one day.
Maybe we can get on the show.
Although it seems to be whenever you watch the Today Show or Channel 9 that Australia and Tasmania are different countries, because when they talk about Australia, we're never there.
Well, I like being exclusive.
That's true,
Mention your podcast.
Yeah.
That's it. I have to put it out there.
Pass it up the line and maybe we'll get a little shout out.
Yeah, so Shelley Craft and Chris someone.
Oh, Shelley from the block.
They're going to be the hosts of the show.
Get all that mystery, Chris.
Was she
Well, everyone knows Shelley. No.
I'm still Shelley from the block. I should do it.
was she one of the she was on like a kids
Shelley
show
still
when
one
we
like
were was she on Aggro or something when we were kids?
No, it wasn't Agros. It was Disney's, the Disney, Saturday Disney.
Saturday Disney. Oh,
Yeah.
that was good.
Oh, love that show.
So she's gone from Saturday morning TV
Primetime children's TV.
and now she's on
Back-
Saturday morning primetime
Real
real
estate
estate.
TV.
And that's probably what they're marketing at. They're like, all the kids that used to get up early
Now ready.
Yeah, they're
are
ready
now
to buy and
a
sell.
house. So
Shelley. It takes me back. I feel safe watching that show.
I think her husband's a real estate agent as well.
Oh, really?
she does seem like she knows her stuff when she's on the block. It's not just she's there to look pretty. Scotty does need her help a fair bit of the time.
Oh, well, as of end of September, we can start reviewing each week's episode.
Yeah.
So,
Critique.
yeah.
Does that mean I
With
can,
high standards
I
over
can
here
claim
too.
my TV back on tax if
For
I
research.
Yeah.
You have to talk to your accountant on that. I don't know.
Damn it.
All right. Anyway, enough about that. I just thought it was interesting that a show was coming out solely about real estate. Because
Yeah.
They
Well,
don't really
Domain-
exist, so it'd be interesting to see.
Well, there used
where
to
they
be
go
that.
with it.
Oh no, that was just a money show, wasn't it? Money with Paul Clitheroe.
Oh, yeah, that was like finance in general.
Yeah.
It wasn't just real estate.
What about that Our House, the one with Shirley Strawn?
It's a very, very, very fun house.
Yeah.
What was that about?
That was Claude the Crow. That was with Claude the Crow, remember?
that's
He used
awesome.
to-
Yes.
And he used to try and get that a good, clear view of the abattoir.
That's right. Yes. We're going way back. Pat's just like, what are you guys talking about?
If you
Just
want to
remember who our demographic is. People are listening and like, what the hell are they talking
people would just
about?
get asking, so what kind of impact on the value of my house will have if I've got clear view of the abattoir?
Well, if you got a crow,
If you've got a crow, yeah, it's big. So for those clients out there, if you've got a view of the abattoir, your best client's going to be your resident crow.
Yes.
And its
exactly.
family.
That's who you're going to market to.
That's going to be your money burner there right there.
All right, guys.
So this got
And
off topic fast.
that advice is for free.
And John is having a blast with it. I can just see his face lighting up. He's like, and mum's here to view as well.
Yeah.
And I'm here with a blank face like, what?
Why did I get out of bed for this?
The problem is because I've got the clear vision of that happening right now. Anyway, I'll stop.
All right, so what we might do is we'll cut off to our first ad. We'll recenter, and our coffee's just arrived. Thank you, Paul Berry, for those.
Yeah, I just when he called in, I wanted to stop and say a quick shout out, but you guys were on a roll because what's that? Who's the artist that has that song? I need a hero, but down, calling up for a hero. Yeah, that's what I felt like Paul was just now.
He definitely was.
Well, I like to, where are we? We're Shake
Bonnie
Leg
Tyler?
Coffee today?
No,
No, Agent Cooper today. I like to think of John as my messiah. John down there at the barista.
with his little
like,
beard.
His little beard and just, he looks like Coffee Jesus.
It's pretty funny that you guys are right next door to Shake a Leg and we're like pretty much right next door to Agent Cooper. It's like they knew that real estate agents were big coffee drinkers.
That's where the biggest money earners
Yeah,
for us.
this is where you open up a business. All right, ad time. We'll be back. Thank you for listening this far.
No, but not Pat's mum. Who cut out early?
414 Real Estate has been operating within the northern suburbs of Hobart since 2006. With their innovative approach to marketing and managing your property, they have all your property needs covered. Find out more by visiting them today at 414.com.au.
All right, so this week we're going to deep dive into bonds, not James Bond, but
Although that would be a good topic.
well, there was bond news this week. The new title of the new one.
Probably the wrong type of show to talk about that.
We can talk about Bond all day. I'll talk about Bond for the whole show if you want. Easy peasy. I can tell you who my favourite is, which ones are the
But we're
good
talking
Daniel
about
Craigs.
rental bonds. Let's just keep going.
They do have some nice real estate that he stays in quite often. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like the GoldenEye thing of the Bahamas.
That's true, exactly. So there's a good segue. But until then,
The houses are more the evil villains, not Bond himself.
just fine.
Anyway, Patrick, you were going to tell us about bonds.
I was listening to Triple J yesterday morning, and the Breakfast Boys were asking people to, I can't remember their names, Liam and someone.
Ben and Liam.
Boom. They were asking people to call in and give horror stories about how they had not got their bond back and the reasons why. And then I was thinking, well, like some of the stories were pretty silly, and how true they were, I'm not really sure.
Do you remember any of the ones that they mentioned, or?
One girl rang up and said that she was told that she couldn't have her bond back until she went and cleaned the kitchen, and when she met the agent at the property to clean the kitchen, there was one hair in a cupboard, and when she removed that hair while the agent was standing there, she asked what else, and the agent sort of had a blank face.
No, it was enough.
It was nothing, and it's like, I guess that's it. Wow. Now, whether or not that's a true story, not because in my opinion, we'd probably just get rid of the hair when we did the inspection.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was just really weird that the hair was the same colour as the agent that was showing the house too.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, the thing that surprised me about hair is in the same breath, someone can say, geez, your hair's beautiful. And then one falls off and falls on the floor. Then like, oh my God, that's disgusting.
Yeah, I'm not touching that.
So that's probably what happened in that situation.
Yeah, probably. So anyway, I thought, why don't we have a chat about what is a bond, how it works in Tasmania, and like who decides if you get a bond back and how do you get it back, so the process involved in it.
And so that thought process led you down the path of who is our resident show rental expert?
I thought that John and I don't know enough.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to say the wrong legislation. So John's like, oh, I'll get Mum back on. And I think he was quite excited on the phone about it. So, Mum's free. And so here we are.
And we greatly appreciate to have you back, Julie.
Try not to get it wrong.
Are you feeling safe on the mic today? Because I feel like we're in a bit of a sillier mood than last week.
You look very animated this week.
And we're only on our first coffee.
You should see Aaron and I by 11.
All right, so let's talk bonds for the people out there that don't really know what it is. Can you describe a bond to me?
Yeah, and what's its purpose?
Yeah, so a bond is to secure, if you like, or give the owner or an owner of a property some sort of security. So for the tenant's paying a bond in good faith, saying that, they will look after the property, they will pay their rent, they will live under the standards of the lease agreement, and the owner he has his own guidelines to follow as well.
Yep, like an insurance
Yeah, like protection, I guess.
or a retainer that I'll look after the place and this is how much money I'll outlay now to say that this is...
Well, it's given in good faith.
Yeah.
So,
and I guess to keep you honest when you leave, to make sure that you return it back to the same condition it was when you moved into.
That's right.
I kind of like the analogy of skin in the game as well. So it's like, well, there is some investment there to ensure that, once they leave, we'll commit this so that we know we'll do our absolute best to live in the same condition so I can get that back.
And so then a bond is then returned to the tenant once they've left the place and in a suitable condition.
Providing it's left back in the same sort of condition as what it was given in.
Yep.
Allowing for fair wear and tear.
And then how do they work out what a bond... I feel like I've seen in movies, you've got to pay 4 weeks. You got to pay 4 weeks to get this place and only 4 weeks down payment.
Yeah, that's the damn payment. Because each state's got different... What's the maximum in Tassie? It's
4 weeks rent.
4 weeks, yeah.
So I guess when you're entering into a lease agreement, what you basically need prior to it is 4 weeks rent, and then the following week.
Generally speaking, it's 6 weeks rent, so 4 weeks for your bond, which gets lodged with the RDA.
So that's a fair point to point out as well for a lot of people. They need to realise that the real estate agent doesn't actually hold the bond and we have no control over the bond. So we might take it, but we pass it straight back on within 24 hours, is it?
And generally speaking, the tenants now can just pay it direct to the RDA.
Which I think most people are doing these days.
They are, and it's all online.
Yep.
So every tenant has their own unique portal login, so they can see that their bond is there and track it. And
I think that's important for tenants to realise as well, is that the RDA is holding the bond, not us. So at the end of the day, they make the final decision whether or not a bond is returned.
So the RDA is a governing body that is overseeing that.
Yeah,
so you answer to them as well as...
They're the independent umpire.
I like that.
So,
But that never used to be the case, though, was it? It wasn't always in place.
It used to be held in trust. Yep.
So in trust with the real estate company?
With the real estate company, but it hasn't been like that for quite some time now.
So what about in the... Because the RDA was... The biggest problems came from private disputes, wasn't it? So originally the owner would hold the bond as well?
Yeah, that's right. It came from private situations, not so much real estate agents, and that's why the RDA eventually was formed to try and stop that happening.
Yeah, because there was an instance where obviously the tenants paid, the 4 weeks bond in good faith, and then come the end of the tenancy, the landlord just doesn't have the cash available. It's like, too bad.
Oh, okay. So this is in a situation where you're privately renting it out yourself. So say I had an investment property, I would also be getting the bond sent to the RDA. It's not just...
That's right.
Yes.
But that real estate companies, we've got a trust account that's audited and, we're legally, there's some serious ramifications for tampering with that account.
Yep.
Whereas in a private situation, it was that the tenant would pay the 2 weeks advance and then the 4 weeks as well.
And then
but
Dr. Barley
but there's no regulation on how that bond was to be maintained from the private landlord. So most of the problems arose out of, the landlords at the time not having their money available to pay the bond.
Yeah, and also too, the rent's not in advance as such. It's the first 2 weeks' rent that are paid. So, for instance, if you come in on the 1st, you pay the rent from the 1st to the 14th, and then your rent's due again on the 14th to the 28th. So sometimes that in advance gets confused as well, because tenants will sometimes think, oh, no, if you say, I paid that first 2 weeks' rent in advance, they think then 2 weeks before their lease expires, well, I don't have to pay that 2 weeks' rent because I've already paid it in advance. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Because often you taught me it's better to think of it more so as calculated as a daily rate.
That's right.
Yeah. So you're paying per day, not per 2 weeks or monthly. It's just, it ends up coming down to a day. So over the 12 months, there might be, 12-month lease, but it's 365 days. So it's just a full amount calculated over that 12 months. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I got what you just have to make the number different in your head. If you say it was 320, you'd be dropping it down.
Divided by 7, yeah.
Yeah.
Just an easy, just an alternative way for people to help calculate it and understand the pay 2 dates effectively.
As a family-run business, First National Real Estate McGregor understands that the property market can be stressful. However, with a strong team in both sales and rentals, we are here to guide you through the property maze. Find out more today at McGregorFM.com.
So obviously when bonds are involved, to keep obviously the tenant and the landlord on even playing fields, there has to be some documentation to decide what is fair. How does that work? What is the documentation?
So that's the condition report that we do at the beginning of the tenancy, and the photos that we take. So
That we talked about last week.
So really, really important for a tenant to go through that condition report at the beginning, because if everybody gets everything right at the beginning, then you don't have those issues at the end.
So, for instance, say the tenant gets the condition report and they get to the property and they're reading through, obviously, what 414 or McGregor's have written down, and they decide, oh, well, this doesn't really match. Do they have any ability to change the condition report, or can they bring in additional photos and ask for the photos to be added to the condition report, things like that?
They can do all of that, and encourage to.
Yeah, cool.
So on the side of the condition report, it'll have whether they agree or not, and then a space for them to write what they see extra. I mean, we're going in and doing a condition report, and we're all human. We might miss things. So that's where it's really important for them to record them. They then bring them back to an office. We'll then go through them to make sure that, we agree as well.
Yep.
Everyone's in agreement, all signed off. That's what's used at the end.
Kind of like when you rent a car and you'll go around it and take the photos of all the dings on it already, and you'll make sure the person sees you do it. You're like, hey, I just took that photo, so I know this one's already here. Yeah. Don't sting me when I get back.
And that's where the photos are good too, because they just back it up. So
and that's why I wanted to check. Like with the radio yesterday, when people were calling in, they were complaining that I was told that the windows needed to be cleaned and this needed to be done, but they were all dirty when I got in there. And I'm thinking at the time when I'm listening to them, but why didn't you add that to your condition report? There's opportunity there for you to change. If it says it's clean on one report and you decide it's not when you arrive, you can't 12 months later turn around and say, well, no, that was dirty when I got there.
Well, the other one too is it'll be, it's cleaner than when I got in there to begin with. And I've cleaned it better than when I moved in. It's like, well, yeah, it might have been important for you to note that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be a millionaire if I put that in my little coin jar.
Yeah, that's one of the coin jars of every time you've heard that statement. Yeah.
So for anyone out there that's listening, it's important to note that when you move into a property, go through the condition report.
And also, too, it's a red flag if you are in a private... I mean, again, renting through a professional agency, obviously there are standards that we hold ourselves to provide a better service for both sides. But, in a private situation, that's a huge red flag. If, you've got an A4 piece of paper with a few lines on it that says condition report and says good, it's like, okay, you've got to be really careful in this moment because there's just not enough documentation to be able to protect you in that case.
Well, that's it. I know our girls, their reports have like hundreds of photos. Like we're talking 300-400 photos per condition report these days.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
That would have been a lot of film back in the day, Julie.
We didn't do that
You
many.
would have been down at the Kodak. They would have been like, holy moly, here comes Julie.
we were good customers.
Yeah, it was. You could really tell when the guy started wearing gold rings because he's going around and rolls around in Moona. Like bugger.
Yeah, no, but there are a lot of photos taken, and it just protects everyone. I've got to say too, though, for the tenant, there is protection against that private landlord that might say, "Oh, we don't need a condition report. We can just
We're
don't worry about
buddies,
it.
we're friends, it's all good.
Chum.
If there is something wrong, because the RDA is there now, that landlord would have to provide evidence to say what it was like before the tenant went in and what they'd caused. So it does protect them a little bit.
Am I on the right train? Are they able to take a bond without a condition report? Or
They're supposed to have a condition report.
so for any listeners out there as well, that a landlord can't force you to take a bond unless they provide you with a condition report. It's a part of the Act.
That's correct,
Yep.
yeah. But the condition report can be
A one-pager.
the one-pager, which
All perfect.
which doesn't
Never better.
doesn't them as such. And then that can cause the arguments at the end.
So if going into private landlordship, is that a word? Private landlord.
We're going with it. We're going with
Close enough.
Yeah, that'll play. If you're going into that, does every house that's rented out have to go through all these things, or can you be like a dodgy one that it's all just cash and?
Well, I mean, it might happen.
Oh yeah, I just not sure if there's
Under legislation, no.
Yes, okay, that's what I wanted to check. Are there legal? What are they called?
Well, it's probably
No.
to answer I was admitted it becomes a tenancy. It comes under the same act.
yes.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
one of the things you could consider is, and it'd be really frightening for tenants who are really in a stressful situation, and they're really stressful because they've got no accommodation, and they're really having to sacrifice a lot of those, you could call them rights, which they have, and they don't know, and they don't understand. So they go into a really bad situation where they're in trouble in some respects because they're paying more than they should be. They don't have all the covers that they need to, and they just don't know the right bodies to turn to when something goes wrong. And they want to stay silent because they're thinking, oh, if I say something to this landlord, they're going to kick me out and I'm stuck again. You know?
Yeah.
So, and that's got to be hard for some people.
Oh, well, I had no idea about this RDA thing.
Yeah.
Before this morning, I wouldn't have. If someone said to me, "Rent out your house," or I've got a little shanty out the back of my house that's kind of a self-contained unit. That if I
Perfect for a slumlord situation, that little shanty of yours.
okay, so,
Yeah. If you want to be a slumlord,
If I wanted to have a big fur coat like Pat, walk around with my cane and a goblet,
or the Rolls Royce like the photographer back in the day,
like that guy, yeah. Wonder what he's doing now.
Oh, not much.
But say I was to want to do that, I'd have no idea.
Film will never die.
People will never die. Not for this guy. He's all in.
If I was to do that, I wouldn't know about the RDA or any of these things. I'd be like, oh yeah, mate, you can just pay me $100 and stay in my back house. But I don't know.
And that doesn't look after either of you.
No, exactly. So I wouldn't have known. Yeah. So this is actually really interesting from my point of view because I'm like, oh, that's something I may look into. Or especially there's, lots of housing problems in Hobart. If I've got that ability to do that with my little back house, then kind of why not?
So with that, if tenants are looking at properties, what are a couple of things that really be advising them to look out for to help protect themselves as they move in?
Well, make sure that they've got all that paperwork. Make sure that the owner has got a good condition report, that their bond is lodged with the RDA. Go through the house. If you're not happy with something, say, write it on your condition report, ask for it to be
And if
be
you
fixed.
and if you are dealing with a private landlord, you can say to them that you only want to pay the bond yourself to the RDA and provide the landlord with a receipt.
That's right.
So if
Yep.
they're demanding that you pay them the bond directly, you can refuse.
That's right. And
Yep.
you can say, no, I'll pay it direct to the RDA.
Yeah, because maybe there's people out there that don't realise that. They think that the landlord asks for it, they have to do it.
Yeah.
Well, in the fun example you said before, Pat, with the hair strand getting left in the cupboard, you mentioned fair wear and tear, right? Which is obviously I'm assuming that's just the natural course of living in a house. Some things are going to happen, scuff marks, and so what are often some common ones that people either forget or that doesn't count as wear and tear that often causes disputes?
Look, I think generally tenants do their best to try and get the house nice and clean when they go. I mean, it's not in anybody's nature not to, I wouldn't think, really, the majority, I'm saying, in their nature not to try and do the right thing. However, there are simple things that they'll miss. Window tracks, for instance. I mean, if you're going through and you're cleaning a house, who would think of cleaning aluminium window tracks?
So hole in the wall after an Essendon loss on a Friday night from Aaron.
Yeah.
That's a repair, is
That's
it?
a repair.
That's
Not shit, I forgot about that hole. Yeah, that's
However,
right.
interestingly enough, the hole in the wall done by a door handle, if there's no door stop there,
Is owner's responsibility.
will sometimes will come back as an owner responsibility because they should have had the door stop
Could
there.
be the wind, or
sense.
it could be some other outside factor that caused the door to make that hole.
Definitely not the Bombers losing.
Well, we had an incident once where we claimed some of the bond, and there was several things, but one of them was the hole in the wall. When it went through the RDA, we provided all the evidence, got awarded to the owner to repay for the repairs and the cleaning and things like that, but the tenant didn't agree, so she then took it to the Magistrates Court, which is fully within their rights.
Yep.
When we got to the Magistrates Court, obviously you have to go through the whole thing again. The one thing that he didn't allow was the hole in the wall from the door handle because there was no door stop.
Okay,
So
sounds fair.
what you said there was that they weren't awarded their entire bond back, but they can get part of it back. So did they lose a certain?
So in other
percentage
words,
of
the
it?
magistrate upheld everything the commissioner had.
So, yeah, I think
Ruled.
what Julie's trying to say, she might have been trying to claim, say, $1,000 and the magistrate let her have $900.
Okay,
the
yeah,
last 100.
yeah. That's just what I wanted to
Yeah.
check. I wasn't sure if it was like a one in, all in. Like if you leave the hair or in the cupboard, or if you have
Can
one
I just
hole.
say about that hair?
Hair story keeps giving.
As a property manager, most of us will carry around a little kit in our car.
A little
'Cause
cleaning
if there's something simple to
You
be
just
done,
wipe it
we'll
down.
just do it ourselves, of course.
Yep.
It saves us so much time. Now, if that property manager, she'd have probably wasted an hour and a half out of her day to
By the
go
time
back to get the hair out of the cupboard. So unlikely that it would...
So you're trying to tell this listener was just trying to get fame on national radio?
Yeah, why let the
No,
truth
we're
get
calling you out, Jenny.
No, I'm just saying that, I probably wouldn't have wasted my time taking it back to get a hair out of
It's
the
interesting you say that, because I think as well, tenants need to realise that as property managers, we're not trying to make this process difficult.
not at all.
Because not only claiming a bond through the RDA takes time because we need to go to the RDA and ask and plead our case. It's extra work for us. It's extra time that the tenant has to wait to find out what's happening.
to get their money back. That's
And the owner has to wait as well. So nobody at the end of the day wants to go down that path. So it's better just to come in and have a conversation, isn't it? And just see if we can come to an arrangement on...
Absolutely. So the idea
We're
is...
there to be reasonable.
That's right. Yeah. So we're there to work together, really. So the idea is before the tenant is vacating, most property managers will have a letter, they'll have a checklist, and, they'll say, look, what you need to look at is your original condition report. So when you're going around and you're doing your cleaning and you're looking around, refer back to your condition report, refer back to your photos, because that's what we'll use when we do the final.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and then what we try and do as property managers is get the agreeance of the tenant before it gets to a dispute. So you'll have the agreeance of the tenant, or it's just say there's a little bit of cleaning that needed doing. Do you want to go back? We only have a certain amount of time for you to do that cleaning, or would you like us to get in a cleaner? If you want us to get in a cleaner, we get the cleaner in, ring the tenant up. We've got the cleaning account in. It's $120. Are you happy with that? Yes. Okay. So now we'll submit
Proceed
it,
from
and
there.
it's all simple.
Well, we're getting up there in time, guys. I know, John, you popped, it'll just be a quick little side one. You popped an article into our little Facebook group, RE Pets.
Yeah,
and
so
bonds.
there's a lot of discussion because there's a push from, depending upon which interest group you're speaking from. But you see in Victoria, I think, Mum, is it right? They've had a big change to the laws in, actually, can you just expand on that, Mum? Like it's where
With the pets?
With the pets and the maintenance as well, I think.
So tenants are allowed to have pets, basically.
Yeah.
With no
I think
say
I saw
within
in the article it said something about like the right to refuse a rental was changing, and you had to go to a tribunal essentially.
Where you have to give good reason as to why not to have a pet.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to make minor renovations, is that correct? Without any permission from the owner as well. So, because it's so new, there's not really any definitions on that just at this stage, is there?
Yeah, there's no case studies on it all.
Yeah, so you can imagine what's a minor renovation? Is that like, oh look, they've put up like a barrier in the middle of the landroom or just an entire wall section? Is that minor? So it's really vaguely written legislation.
Yeah,
It's going to be
is.
really interesting to see what comes out of that. So obviously in Tasmania now too, there are some different groups pushing for the same legislation to come through Tasmania, so that what would be then defined as a tenant's right under legislation is vastly different from what we have now, where owners have they have to apply for a tenancy to apply for a pet, so it's not just a given that you can have one.
Yep.
So, but many years ago, wasn't that there used to be a pet bond, and then they took that away.
Well, you could charge a pet bond.
Yeah.
And most tenants don't mind paying a pet bond, or they
Yes.
never did.
So that's what
never did. And often even now they'll still say, I'm happy to pay a pet bond, and I'll say, well, we can't take a pet bond.
Yeah, so in the article I read, it said that WA is the only state at the moment that currently has a pet bond that you can legally pay, and it can only be a certain amount of the rent or something.
And that's the irony of it. Tassie used to have it.
Yeah.
And then it was just removed. And then what would have been
Well,
the...
because they didn't think it was, again, it was fair for a tenant to pay extra bond. But people that have pets, most people are responsible pet owners, and they love their pets. So for them, that's their baby, if you like.
Yeah.
So they don't mind. A lot of them don't mind paying that extra money to be able to have their pets. Now, if you think about it, if you have and the reason behind it, again, it is protection for the owner, but also it is allowing for, say, that tenant to be approved that perhaps they might not have been otherwise.
Yep.
But if you have, say, a tenant go in, they get a week behind in their rent, you have to give 2 weeks notice, 2 weeks clear notice. They're not out by that time. You might have to go to court. That 4 weeks that the owner has is used up very quickly. So if there's
Doesn't mean much.
if there is any damage or anything like that done, where does that come from?
Yeah, you've got to get right on
There's
top of it
pretty
straight away.
negligible.
And the same with a pet. You might go a tenant. This is a bad tenant. I'm not saying again, as I say, most people are good, responsible pet owners. But you might get a pet that causes a lot of damage.
Yep.
If a cat whees on carpet, for
gone.
instance,
Pongo the pirate.
You cannot get it out.
We just got a quote for a two-bedroom unit with, and that was $3,500 worth of carpet.
Wowzers.
So the $50 a week pet bond doesn't really cover.
Well, and what about the little scratch marks where the cats will crawl up the curtains and you don't notice it until you close the curtains? You've got all these little holes coming through.
The bit I found interesting in the article was it said, a budgie can't really cause that much damage, but a fish tank can. And I was like, fish, they can't cause any problem. But they said if there's no legislation on...
It's the weight of the tank.
It's the weight of the tank and the size of the tank. You could have a 1,000-litre tank in your lounge room that's monstrous and it'll cause all these things. But I was just like, fish, no pet. Fish, easy. You got this.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that concerns me about tighter and tighter legislation a lot of the time is that it removes the capacity for negotiation. So if it says that, look, you can or you cannot, or that removes any form of capacity for the clients to build a relationship to negotiate, well, then you have those instances where all of a sudden it's like you can have a pet, a 400-kilo fish tank all of a sudden arrives in the centre of the lounge room. And
But
Or
also
a horse in the backyard.
Yeah.
yeah.
But there also too, there's one other thing that everybody forgets, and definitely I agree that there's people out there that need help, but at the end of the day, this house is owned by someone and it's their house, and it's taking away some of their rights.
Yeah.
And they've saved a long time to get this house and to try and get ahead, and it's their house. If they don't want if they want it to be
Looked after a certain way. Yes.
I actually believe it's their right to do so.
Yeah, and to finish up on, and if we could have links, is that the good thing is now is that with your owner, with the tenancy union, the magistrate, the RDA, there are so many channels in order to get the right advice. And so I think with tenants, for us, is that again, we're not working against tenants in that case.
No.
Is just we want the relation to be as strong as we possibly can because it makes our job easier.
Yep.
Who wants to spend 2 hours cleaning a hair strand?
Exactly. Julie's example before of if I was in that situation, I would have grabbed the hair. I've got my little kit. I think that sums it up perfectly.
Yeah.
If you've got a good property manager, they want everything to run as smoothly as the owner and the tenant. And that's...
And most people don't like confrontation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, nobody's out there to look for it.
Yep.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, that was really fun. Thank you for coming in again, Julie.
Oh, my pleasure.
We'll try and get the hat trick next week. We'll come up with something when we'll just keep bringing John's mum. We'll have to put you in the intro.
I think you'd be sick of me by then.
No, it's been lots of fun. And again, thank you for coming in and thanks for being part of the show.
No, absolute pleasure. Thanks
very
guys.
much.
All the best, guys.
All right, see you.
Bye.
And now for a legal disclaimer. You have been listening to The Property Pod, produced and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Real Estate and McGregor First National Proprietary Limited.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek and use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute, should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken on the basis of this information.